These are the 7 things that can absolutely and completely change Africa. Be with me today as I will be talking about very interesting things. So before we dive deep into this, I would like you to subscribe and like because it helps others. So it's good. I also grow. So the first thing that can change Africa without going this way or that way is Africa with no borders. You heard me. Africa with no borders. This is the first thing that can change Africa. If we Africans, especially the presidents, can gather in a place and say that we need to change our continent. I know that without contradiction, the first thing that we do is to say that Africa needs no borders. What do we need borders for? There is absolutely no any single reason why we need borders in Africa. Africa should be one continent, one country. Africa, we need to unite. I always preach the gospel of the African unity wherever I go. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I like the ideas of how Africa can be united. And if you're one of them, I would like you to see in the comments. So the first thing I would suggest that is that Africa must have no borders. Africa should be borderless. And there is also something that PLO Lumumba started. Is an initiative which was a borderless Africa. I like that thing. He's my guy. He's everything. He's my role model in Pan-Africanism. So what do we have to think first? We need to think that Africa, there's no any reason that we should have borders, because the borders are the source of inconvenience. The borders are the source of fighting, of everything. So the second thing I would suggest that may unite Africa is Africa with one army. And I'm not the first person to say this or the last person to say this, but in the context that, or in the context of African unity, we need to see Africa with one army. We need to hear that Africa is going to have one army. I don't know the name. Maybe when they unite as one Africa, all countries to unite together, there will be an army. I don't know the name. They will suggest, but we must have one army in Africa. We must say that this is the army of Africa. This army represents Africa. And guess what number that army could be made up of? Can you guess? Millions and millions. Maybe close to 1 billion, I don't know. But if we Africans have an army, I dare say with no contradiction that Africa can be strong in the ways that the Westerns, every part of the world cannot recognize. Africa has not yet recognized her potential. We need to recognize our potential, guys. We need to know that everything we have been told, everything that we hear is meaningless. Everything that we hear is just to make us kill one another. It's just to make us not support one another. It's making us go further apart. So as Africa, as a Pan-Africanist, personally, I think that having one army and calling it the Army of Africa will be one of the main factors that can lead to the unity of Africa as a continent. One Africa, one army. One army, one Africa. The third thing I would say that can unite Africa is Africa to have one currency. Listen to me. If Africa could have its own currency, let's say, for example, I don't know how we can call it. Maybe I don't know the name. But if Africans we can have one currency in the whole continent, then Africa can be in the process of unity, of uniting. Because I go to Tanzania and have Tanzanian shillings. I go to Kenya and have Kenyan shillings. I go to Nigeria and have Naira. I go to other parts of Africa, we find different currencies. Africa has 33 currencies in the continent. Why? Why can't we have one currency? Why are we not united in the context of economy? Why are we not united? Instead of going to IMF, instead of going to World Bank, we should think of how Africa can have one currency and one bank. The African Bank. Many of leaders in the past thought of this idea. And where they are now, you can't ask me. But yet, sacrifices are always there because there is no change without pain. So Africa, we need to think of having one currency. Because when we have one currency, we will be free of economic dependence, which is something I will also talk about later as also a common factor. So we should think of having one currency in Africa. Because the more we have different currencies, the more we are disunited, the more we are vulnerable, the more we are easy to be controlled, to be manipulated by external powers. We should think of having one currency in Africa. The fourth thing, I think that if we should leave it behind, can bring unity in African nations, is that Africa should leave behind the concept of having ethnic groups. I don't know your tribe, I don't know your ethnicity, but hear me out. The moment you start saying I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever, I don't care, that's the moment you start acting as your colonizer. Let me tell you what, I think you also know. The colonizer, they came in Africa and told us that you are this, you are Zulu, you are Tutsi, you are Bahwa, you are whatever. But they did this to make us fight one another, because they said you are superior to this and these are inferior. So they made a conflict between us by creating such concept called ethnicity. So if we need Africa to be united, we should think of leaving behind ethnic groups. We should know that we are all Africans, we are all black, we all bleed the same blood, we all under the same sun, we all live on this, we all feed on the same soil, we all live on the same earth, and we are one. Instead of fighting and killing each other, saying that he's not in our part, no, we should think of having a society only named Africans, instead of having the ethnic groups, which also lead to war, which also lead to misunderstanding. You will find in many countries in Africa where people will not give you a service, people will not give you something because you are from a different type of group. Why? Who cast us Africans? Who cast us? We are all black. We are all black. The next time you think of underestimating or discriminating a fellow Africa because of his ethnic groups, know that you are not different to your colonizer. You are not different, and you are a shame to Africa. You are a shame to Africa. Africa, we should be united. We should leave this concept of ethnicity behind. It's a main thing which is making us being separated. Another thing that can help Africa be united is Africa to have one language. Kiswahili, Kinyarwanda, Lingala, all those language, So one language, what do I want to mean by this? If we can speak one language in Africa, then we are starting to go into the way. The direction is coming. Because we can say that we are united when we don't have the same language. How can someone from Nigeria communicate with someone from Zimbabwe? How can someone from Ghana communicate with someone from Burundi? How can someone from Kenya communicate with someone from Chad? We need to have one language as Africans. And I propose that language should be Swahili, because Swahili is the most fluent language in Africa. We need our future generation, we need our kids to be understanding each other, to understand each other when they are talking. Africa should have one language, not the foreign language, English or whatever. No, Africa should have one language as in the continent. Another point I think that can unite Africa is to cut off the chains of economic dependence. Let me tell you something. Africa is the most resourceful continent on earth. Africa has a lot of natural resources. Africa has a lot of minerals. Yet, it's the poorest continent on earth. Why do you think so? We don't have control of our economies. They control our economies. How? we must break these chains of economic dependence. Example, the Democratic Republic of Congo is the richest resource country on earth, but yet it's one of the poorest nations on earth. It has a lot of minerals. But today it's one of the poorest countries on earth. Why do you think so? Because they don't have control of their economy. They come there and tell them this and that, but they don't own anything. Congo produces cobalt. Congo produces nickel, gold. Yet Congo cannot even make a shotgun. Congo cannot even make a grenade. Congo cannot even produce one telephone. Yet the most important thing in making a telephone is coming from Congo. Why? Why so? China, America, and others, they are coming. They are coming and taking everything. So what can we do? We need to break off these chains. We need to know that these are our mineral resources. We own them. They are ours. We should have control on them. The moment we have control on our economy as Africa, that's the moment Africa will change. The last but not least is love. Africans, we need to love our fellow Africans. And when I talk about love, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. For example, in South Africa, past week, they were protesting. They were killing other blacks. Because of what? Because they just an excuse of saying they are stealing jobs, they are doing this and that. No, that's not an excuse. That's not the reason. You are stepping the shoes of your colonizers. You are doing exactly the same thing. The only difference is that you are black and I'm black. How can we say that we love one another in Africa when we are still chasing others outside of our countries? How can you say that Africa will love one another when we are still killing each other? How can we say that Africans will love one another when we are still raping our sisters? How can we say that Africa will love one another when we are still killing one another? How can we say that? How? We need to change. No one is coming to change us. No one is coming to change us. No one. Africa needs a hygiene in its politics. Africa needs to realize her potential. Africa needs to change. Today or tomorrow, I don't know the date, I don't know the time, but I know that Africa will change. Africa must change. So wherever you are, if you are an African, please, I would like to see your idea in the comments, because they say that comments is where we share ideas. It's where we share insights. It's where I know what you think about on your perspective. So see you guys, and thank you for watching this. I really appreciate. But go home wherever with one thing in your mind. How can Africa be united? Thank you.